Hello, my name is Ellie Barnes. I'm a writer and a librarian, and today I'm going to review Tyler Oakley's Binge. I have watched Tyler Oakley not for terribly long, maybe a couple of months. I do think he's funny. I do think he's fun. I pre-ordered Binge because I was curious about it. And overall, I want to say I enjoyed the book. There are a lot of funny parts. He's very honest in the book, and I think that's always worth reading. The best part of this book is literally in the center, and I think of it as the heart of the book. He tells the story of the first time he fell in love. And he tells this story especially well. There can be a problem when you're writing your own story, years after the events that you're writing about. You can let hindsight interfere too much. And it interferes with the person who's trying to experience the story as it happened to you, the reader. If you've read Holly Madison's Down the Rabbit Hole, as much as I think she's being honest in that book, I do think she lets hindsight interfere with literally almost every chapter. She has to stop in the process of telling you the story to tell you how she feels about the story now, 10 years later. It's disruptive. Tyler doesn't do that. Tyler manages to let the situation, specifically this is a situation where he fell in love with a man who wasn't entirely openly gay yet, or had not accepted even to himself that he was gay. So Tyler lets this slight discomfort grow as he's telling the story, and the messed upness of the situation and how painful and ego-draining this gradually became over time, without telling you how he feels about it now every other page. I think it's the best story in the book. I would put the second best story, which is still very interesting, is the whole saga of him in One Direction. Now, I don't listen to One Direction and I kind of don't care. So the beginning of that story I was kind of tuning out, but as we went further into the story, there's a sort of downside of the internet and downside of public life place that it goes to in the end that I think made it far more interesting than it would have been if he'd written it before those events happened, because it just would have been, yay! I supported One Direction, they supported me, and then everything was happy and skipping the tulips and everything. Which is not how it ends. That story, too, is well told and is interesting. My somewhat downside of this book, I sort of have 2 points that are or not that may or may not be downsides depending on how you feel about it. The first is there are a handful of stories, maybe 3 or 4, that are longer and are more detailed. But the rest of the book is really fragmented. It's little snippets here and there that sometimes add up to a single idea and often don't. They're just kind of strung together. It's somewhat of a disjointed book, or at least about half of it is very disjointed. The other downside may not be a downside at all, but more a caveat. If you've never heard of Tyler Oakley and you've never watched him, I would go watch a few of his videos before reading this book. It's very much his voice and his sense of humor. I find him funny. I find him fun to listen to. I like the way he tells stories. Even the short fragmented stories, despite the fact that they don't really go anywhere, I often found funny. But if you find him annoying, this book is not going to work for you. He is not for everyone, and you know what, if you don't like it, just walk away. It's not for you. And once again, I'm Ellie Barnes, and this was my positive review of Tyler Oakley's Binge. I do recommend it for every Tyler Oakley fan. And if you're not a fan of Tyler Oakley, I would say you should check him out. He's a pretty good time. I will be back again. My next book review will probably be next week, and it should be Career of Evil by Robert Galbraith, who is really J.K. Rowling. I will see you then.